Are we taking PJ Fleck for granted? And why do the outside world have so much disdain for him? We're going to talk about that here today on Locked On Golden Gophers.
Locked On Golden Gophers, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Golden Gophers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Golden Gophers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm host Kane Rob, former collegiate football video coordinator and recruiting assistant, here to talk Gophers with you each and every day of the week. Now, I want you to head over to the YouTube channel, hit subscribe, be sure to check out previous episodes, check out our interview with Zaquan Bryan yesterday, check out our interviews with Ryan Burns and our Wisconsin Badgers Locked On podcast crossover episode as well. We've got more interviews coming up. We've got more insights coming up. And today it's going to be all about football. We're going to talk about Jaxon Howard and why being in his top four matters. And then we're going to talk a whole lot of PJ Fleck and if we're taking him for granted, or why do the outside world seem to have a lot of hatred towards PJ Fleck. We're going to talk about all of that today on the show. But first, we're going to talk about Jaxon Howard. Jaxon Howard is the number one recruit in the state of Minnesota in this class of 2023, and he has officially narrowed down his top four choices for where he will play next season. And the Gophers made the cut. We're right there. We're in the top four. We're there with Michigan, Miami, and LSU, and then the Gophers. And that's not the necessary order. Those are just the top four schools. Now, Michigan caught me by surprise. Hadn't seen a lot of things out there between Jaxon Howard and Michigan, but the other three schools seem to be the ones that he was consistently posting on social media and interacting with. And so those three, they made sense. Michigan really caught me by surprise, and that's the one I hope that he I hope with all my heart he does not end up there. If we lose, don't let it be to Michigan. But let's talk about why it's important being in those top four. It's not just a consolation prize just because he's from Minnesota. I think the reason we made that top four goes more than just him being from here. Now, like I said, he narrowed it down to four schools: Minnesota, LSU, Miami, and Michigan. Why is this important? It puts Minnesota in the running for a top-ranked recruit who is looking at top-ranked programs. And we're right there with top-ranked programs in his Final Four. It shows legitimacy with what Fleck has been growing here in this program and what he's been building over the years. It gives perspective on we're not just a school to overlook now, and that home state players can stay here. It is an option where they can still obtain their dreams and their future goals. And that's starting to present itself on the basketball end too. We're starting to see something of that nature, and hopefully that trend will continue, but it's developing full force here on the football side of things. We've already got four of our top six in-state recruits here, but this guy's different. I mean, he's a defensive end and a tight end. He can play both sides. It hasn't been deemed what position he will play in college. But that being said, his rank is as elite. He's the number 7 athlete in the entire nation in the class of 2023, 4-star recruit, and he's the number 87th ranked player in the entire class. So he's a top 100 player from Minnesota, 4-star recruit, can play on both sides of the ball, and he's considering the Gophers. Now, yes, he plays at Cooper High School in Minnesota, and again, he plays D end and tight end, but it's not just because we're home. I'm sure that gives a benefit and some leeway, but if it was just because it was in Minnesota, he could look at St. Thomas. He could look at something closer to home like the Badgers. I mean, it's not just because of that. He's developed a connection and he's seeing what we've been building. Like, it's just like top recruits going to the Bamas and the USCs and the Oklahomas. I mean, the fact that Minnesota can even be considered now for those top flight guys that get tons of offers. I believe Jaxon Howard had 61 FBS offers, 61, and we made it into the top 4 cut. Bama was in there. USC was in there. Clemson was in there, but they didn't make the cut. We're in that top 4, and you can't even blame distance being the main factor either, because Michigan, semi-close, Florida, not close at all, Louisiana, not close at all. So each program likely has different reasoning on why he is considering them. But this adds legitimacy, and the addition could help us not only feature a top-ranked guy, because if he comes here, I guarantee you we will find ways to make a feature player, and probably right from the jump, if we're being honest. So again, it would give us legitimacy, helping us feature a ranked player like that, but also to hopefully help out future recruits to make a similar choice. And even those who are not directly connected to Minnesota, but that like what the program is doing, that like how we are building up, like the coaching in place here. Now, one thing to notice is with all 4 programs, there's coaching caliber, a high coaching caliber across all 4 programs. It's top notch. I mean, you got Michigan, who has a former NFL coach, and they just saw the college football playoff opportunity last year where they played in the college football playoff this past season. Now, Miami has Oregon's former head coach who has won a Rose Bowl. He won an Elmo Bowl in his last 2 out of his last 3 years. He's had success. He had one of the top tier programs in the country. And then you have LSU, who has Notre Dame's old coach, who also coached in the football playoff just 2 seasons ago. And he had some high caliber wins also against a high powered Clemson team that ended up losing in the college football playoff. A similar team that was in the college football championship the year prior. So these coaches all have some caliber to them. And to see PJ Fleck up there with these guys, competing with these guys for a top recruit, is fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. And it shows that PJ Fleck has some chops about him as well. He doesn't get enough love. He doesn't get enough credit. And we have to earn and establish some of that still. But it feels like there's more hate out there than is necessary. And even here in Minnesota, we have a lot of love for him. But I feel like we still take for granted how special these 5 years, and especially the past 3 years, where he's really had his recruits and his guys that he's built up from his classes, that there's not as many guys that trailed over from the last coaching regime. The last 3 years have been special, and it's something to really get excited about and build forward with. So are we taking PJ Fleck for granted? That's what we're going to talk about next. But first, I want to talk to you about Built Bar, because Built Bar only 130 calories, 4 net carbs, 4 grams of sugar, and 17 to 19 grams of protein. You can replace your candy bar with these things. You're having less, almost 300 calories less, a whole boatload of carbs less, and absolutely way less sugar. A candy bar typically has 30 grams of sugar, a Built Bar. Net carbs galore in a candy bar. A Built Bar has 4. And on top of that, it's protein power packed. And they have absolutely delicious flavors. The newest one, if you're truly trying to replace your candy bars, you need to try the latest flavor, which is the birthday cake puffs. If you like birthday cake, You're going to love this. It tastes phenomenal. It's sweet. It's got the perfect sweetness for that sweet tooth, and it's packed with protein for after your workouts to fill any hunger that you have. It's perfect for that. So be sure to head on over to built.com and use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off your next order. Again, go to built.com and use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off your order at built.com. So thank you for making Locked On Golden Gophers your first listen. I truly appreciate it. Head on over to the YouTube channel if you haven't already, and be sure to subscribe. We just crossed 100 subscribers. Now let's jump that up to 200 and then 500. We're going to get this thing rolling. We're going to build this Gophers community up. And this is a show where you can come every day for your Gophers information. Even in this off season, we're going to keep it high powered. If we ever tone back, it'll consistently be at least 3 out of the 5. But my goal is to churn this thing out 5 days a week for you, give you all that Gophers information. We're talking basketball. We're talking women's basketball. We're talking football. We're talking men's hockey. And we're going to work our way into talking women's hockey, establishing and surrounding myself in those programs to give you the latest and greatest when it comes to those teams. So be sure to hit subscribe. Leave comments on what you're liking below. Leave comments about what you would like to hear about. Leave comments about feedback that you have. We're adjusting. We're learning and we're adjusting, and I am making this show for you all. So be sure to subscribe. Wherever you get your podcast, leave a 5-star review. Just thank you so much for it. Now we're going to jump in, like I said, to talk about, are we taking PJ Fleck for granted? Now, what PJ Fleck has done for this program, it's absolutely important. I mean, both on and off the field. You're not hearing about issues off the field. The Gophers had a handful, their fair share of issues off the field prior to. You haven't been hearing about those issues. You've been hearing about the great culture that's been established here. The Gophers are doing well in the classroom, and they're handling their business on the field as well. I mean, as Minnesota fans, we feel the absolute pain of postseason. Look at the Timbers here, lost in the first round. They should have won that series. They had multiple opportunities to advance, lost in the first round. One of the best Minnesota Wild teams that we've probably ever had in the history of Minnesota Wild had so much hope. One of the most talented players in the entire NHL on the roster, lost in the first round. Vikings, when they've been making the playoffs or not making the playoffs lately, but when they have, it's been quicker exits. So it's just like we feel this pain, we feel this misery. The Twins have consistently got knocked out of the first round. So it's like we never have the success, but we do. I mean, we had the Lynx, many championships in a 7-year span, 4 championships, almost 5. But the Gophers now, still, currently, consistently. In fact, since PJ Fleck here, we have won 3 bowl games and lost 0 bowl games. The postseason play with PJ Fleck has been perfect thus far. Now it's taking the step to get to the even higher games, to get to the Rose Bowl, to get to the college football playoffs, and then keep that record going. That is the next step and the next hope. But to see that success right now is promising, and I think we're taking it for granted. I mean, we had an Outback Bowl victory against Auburn in 2019, which may have been our highest caliber bowl game victory since the Rose Bowl in the 1960s. Again, I'm going to say that again. Our highest caliber bowl game victory just happened 2 years ago with PJ Fleck at the helm since our Rose Bowl in the 1960s. I mean, we can't get down. We can't. We want to keep stepping up to, okay, well, we need to be better. We need to win the Big Ten West. We need to, yes, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I'm right there with you. I want a championship. I want a Big Ten championship. I want to go to the playoffs. I am there with you wholeheartedly, but also appreciate what we've had these past few years as well. Embrace what we have as we're growing, but keep striving for more. So don't take it for granted. I mean, PJ Fleck's record in the Big Ten so far in these 5 years is 21-22 in the Big Ten. Now, this might sound ridiculous that I am saying we're taking it for granted, and he has a record that isn't even quite yet. I think it will be soon enough. I think this season will drive us towards the above 500 factor in the Big Ten. I have no doubts about that. I am very confident in that. I would be willing to put money on that. But even now, with a 21-22 record, you need to be excited and happy with what he has done so far. He's established his system and the program, and he was building since that year one. Year one was rough. It was rough as anticipated. We were 5-7 in that first year. The next year we went 7-6. That's 13 losses right there. 13 of our 22 losses came in those first 2 years as we were building the program, as we were establishing our presence and building and getting the recruits that he was going after. See, building a program takes multiple, because you're getting the guys that fit your system. You're bringing in the recruits that fit your scheme. And so it takes time. And you're working with players and adjusting with the players and their strengths that you have, while also incorporating these guys that you are literally building for. It's tough. But then you look at after those first 2 years, it took off. 2019, 11-2. Now 2020, yes, rough year, shortened season, COVID, absolutely extremely shortened season. We had tons of injuries. We had the COVID pandemic, and it was just a wild card. You can't even put any blame on any school in that instance. But then 2021, back up, 9-4. And honestly, if you are being real with yourself, and I think even if you ask PJ Fleck, we should have absolutely been 11-2 last season. There is no way we should have dropped those close games to Bowling Green in Illinois. So you're saying besides a pandemic, injury, COVID-riddled season, you could have had 2 11-2 seasons, both extremely high winning percentages. But even if you just say, okay, yep, we had 9-4, that's still a successful season. And we won a bowl game, a guaranteed rate with West Virginia. I mean, we've had success, and I believe we're going to continue to have it now that he has established his recruiting classes, his system, his program, and I expect the success to continue. Now, secondly, Gophers coaches in Big Ten records prior to Fleck. Coach Clays was 6-8 in the Big Ten. Coach Kill was 14-21 in the Big Ten. Coach Brewster was 6-21 in the Big Ten. Coach Mason was 52-48 in the Big Ten. And Coach Wacker was 8-32 in the Big Ten. I just listed for you coaches that date back all the way to 1992. Only one of them has above 20 wins outside of Coach PJ Fleck. And none of them are even close to 500 when it comes to winning percentage. We're 1 game away with Coach PJ Fleck. That dates back to 1992. But in fact, let's go till 1972. The only coaches with winning percentages over 500 for the Gophers football program since 1972 was Glenn Mason. And I'm talking overall winning percentages. So even with the games outside of conference play, there's only 3 coaches that have above 500 winning percentage. Coach Glenn Mason had a 50.5% winning percentage. Clays had a 57.9 winning percentage, and that was only in 2 seasons. And Coach PJ Fleck in 5 seasons has a 60 0.3% winning percentage, the most of every coach we've had since 1972. So I absolutely think we are taking it for granted. And now that Coach Fleck has his recruiting classes and program fully in place and isn't establishing the culture any longer because it's already established, there's no reason to believe that the Gophers won't be competitors in the Big Ten West year in and year out. So with that, why does there seem to be disdain for Coach Fleck on the outside of Minnesota? That's what we're going to talk about next. But first, I want to talk about our friends over at Rock Auto, because you know what? We've all had car problems, and we hate when we have car problems because that means you're probably going to be footed with a large bill. You go to the shop, they tell you about the issue, they tell you that these are the parts that you need, and they only have this part available, and it's usually the more expensive one, and it's just a headache. It's intimidating. You feel like you're being taken at the auto shop because they're just taking your money from you, and it's such a hassle. It's such a headache, and it's stressful. Well, no more, because you have a computer and you can look up with our friends at rockauto.com and get the parts that you need for way lower. Why pay 30%, 50%, sometimes 100% more than what the part value you need is? Go over to rockauto.com and you can find a part for much cheaper. Get the best part price for you. So head on over to rockauto.com today and mention Locked On in the How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. But for better prices, more reliable, and all the parts you can think of for your car or truck, head on over to rockauto.com today. All right, so yes, to close the show, I want to talk about why is there this disdain for Coach PJ Fleck of Minnesota. Now, as a Gopher fan, you know Fleck has his fair share of haters. It seems like 3/4 of the outside world are outside of Minnesota, and they have a problem with the guy. And I've been asking myself why. Why do people hate on him so much? Folks talk about he's too much about himself, or they bring up how after the row the boat mantra and brand with him here, legally trying to take that back with him. It's like too much about him and he only cares about himself. And it's like, that's their reasoning. People don't like how he talks. People think he has too much energy and they get annoyed with him. Heck, even a producer on the Pat McAfee show has overly voiced his hatred for Fleck and how he believes that he is a used car salesman. He's a phony. I mean, barring he's an Iowa fan, the producer of that, one of the producers of that show, who has such a disdain for PJ Fleck. So the rivalry definitely comes into it. But all that said, it's just like people hate success and competition. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at with this. The disdain is typically from fans within the Big Ten Conference, but some outside, that dislike PJ Fleck because he brings success. And he knows he brings success. He knows that he's brought success with Western Michigan, and now he's brought it here with Minnesota. That because he's full and confident in himself, but people see it as full of himself. I don't think that's the case. I think that people are they don't take kindly to people that believe and have full belief in themselves and show that confidently. Now, all of that said, I believe what PJ Fleck has built here is perfect. It's something that you either have people all on board, ready to join, ready to be a part of it, and they're all out committed to it right away, and they know that they want to be a part of it, or they know this is absolutely not for me. You have a recruit come in, they meet PJ Fleck, they see him do his spiel, they see him and what he's about, and they see what this program's about, and they're like, yo, nope, nada, this ain't for me. He's too much. I'm not in. This is not my energy. And that's great. That's absolutely great because you don't have to ride the line of, is this player going to want out each and every year? If they know this isn't what they're looking for from the jump, good, because you know the players you're getting are bought in and want to be a part of that. They want to be a part of what you have established. There's so many players that go to a program, think they want to be a part of that. So many people that go to Bama and they're like, yeah, I want to be a part of Bama. Then they don't get the reps they want, or they don't like the aspect of competition. And even if you're a 5-star guy, somebody else can outwork you, and they transfer because they want their opportunity because they're a 5-star. At least people know with Fleck if this is their vibe or not right away from the jump. It saves both sides of the program and the player so much time. So I'm all for it. I think it's great. And the truth is, I believe PJ gets this hate because it works. So with that being said, and I anticipate, and you need to too, anticipate the hate is going to grow. Because once we have another successful season this year, and God will home, the Big Ten West title, the noise and the hate will rise. But that just shows it. We've 13 players drafted since PJ Fleck has been the head coach of this program. 13 players have been drafted in the NFL draft, with a vast majority of those players coming from his true recruiting classes, from the classes of 2020, 2021, and 2022. Those 3 drafts, that's where 11 of our 13 players have been drafted with his true recruiting classes. Yet, if you're trying to look for 13 players that have been drafted, 13 Gopher prospects to be drafted prior to PJ Fleck being here, you would have to add up prospects, Gophers drafted from 2006 to 2016, over a decade, just to get 13 players drafted. Yet PJ's had 11 in the last 3 years. That should show you right there our success is building and climbing. Our program is building right. The success is why people are starting to hate. We're putting our names into that atmosphere that people didn't think we should be. Right up there with Wisconsin, right up there with Iowa in the Big Ten West. And hopefully we keep pushing. Push past that, get to the Penn State, get to the Ohio State. And that's going to take time. That's going to take so much time. But why not us? Why not strive for more, not continue to push? So what I want to say to all of you is that even though you're going to experience haters along the way, even though we're going to experience a fair amount of trash talk as we continue to grow, the continued success brings bigger recruits, bigger money, bigger transfers, and more. We've already been seeing those bumps in those areas, so embrace the hate now and continue to row. That's going to do it for us today on the Locked On Golden Gophers podcast. This is Kane Rob. I'm so appreciative for you listening, making this podcast a listen each and every day. Please comment down below who you would like for us to bring on the show for another interview, a player you'd want from whatever sport. Tell me what players you want on the show in the comments below. That's what I want to know today here at the Locked On Golden Gophers. This is Kane Rob signing off. Have a great one. I appreciate you all. Take it easy.